And welcome to another podcast of Jono Talks. Today we have Ed Hirst in the studio.
Thanks for having me in, Jono.
No problems, Ed. Ed specialises in sound production, which also includes, but is not limited to, live entertainment, games, television and film. Currently, he is an assistant general manager for RMITV television. Ed's also been involved with SYN's all-Australian music show called The Leak and hosted the Hoist program, which consists of Australia's emerging musicians. Thanks for coming by, Ed.
It's my pleasure.
So has there been any Australian musicians which have really caught your eye, who you think will do well in the future?
Yeah, well, doing shows like I hosted 1700, the TV program, as well as, I'm a presenter on the Hoist every Thursday. And there's been so many great bands come in and play. Like, there's so much local Australian music, which no one knows about, which is really incredible. So, yeah, there's so many artists, like Hiatus Coyote were pretty big. They're sort of like jazzy with a bit of like R&B influence. They're really good.
Yeah.
But they're starting to reach that point where they're getting recognition for their work now. But yeah, they're amazing. But then there's bands which aren't really that big yet as well, like Lengths and stuff. He's amazing. Yeah, so they're sort of indie folk artists and they're also really good. So there's a whole bunch of like great music out there.
Is some of the artists in question, like, do they go through the Hoist program to get recognition, or do they also do like other things as well?
Usually, like radio programs, like community radio, it's all about promoting like their EP launch maybe, or an upcoming gig. So yeah, it's all about drawing an audience, I guess, to come to their show. Yeah.
And has anyone that has come on the Hoist played live before?
Yeah, a few times. In fact, we have people coming in and we set up just like an acoustic performance. Like Swim Season did an amazing song. They did like an acoustic version of one of their new song, Tiny Apartment, I think it was called. And it was amazing. Like they had two guitarists and then the tambourine player just in the corner shaking the tambourine, and it sounded really good.
And in the studio, you were telling me before the podcast that you like to set it up in a certain way, so you have like two mics on. What happens if you have like multiple artists in at the same time? How do you get that set up?
Well, generally we can only have there's only 4 mics in the studio, so 2 of the mics are usually on the presenters, so you're sort of restricted by that. But I guess they only come in to play like an acoustic version of their song, so generally it's just like 1 mic on the guitar, 1 on the vocals.
Does that generally do the job? Does that?
Yeah, it does. Like with the tambourine player I was talking about before, we didn't have a mic on him because the tambourine's really loud.
Yeah,
anyway, so
we
just threw him in the corner and it sounded fine.
And because you're involved in sound production, is there any musical instrument that you really appreciate above others in terms of sound?
Ooh, in terms of like what it sounds like? I guess guitar amazes me, electric guitar, just because of the different tones you can get. Like you can get really clean sounding stuff, but then you can just get fuzzy, distorted sounds as well. So I like it because of its versatility. In a similar way, I really like synthesizers. Synthesizers are amazing because you can just make any sound.
What are they?
They're like keyboards, but like a keyboard just plays pre-recorded sounds. A synthesizer, you create the sounds, hence synthesis.
Have you heard of the Gorillaz, the band? Do they use synthesizers?
Sort of. Yeah, probably. I'm
not 100% sure.
They don't use them like prolifically, but they probably would.
Yeah, they use a lot of
because they are quite electronic. Yeah,
they use a lot
of like drum machines and stuff.
Yeah. And what kind of musicians do you like in general?
That's a pretty big question.
Well,
I have a really, really wide taste in music. But let's start with, like, the big ones that like really influenced me would be probably when I was young. I remember watching Smells Like Teen Spirit on like Channel V or something. Yeah, that was pretty cool. You know, I was like 8 years old, and I remember just seeing that. It was pretty cool. And like I remember my parents were like, yeah, he died. And I was like, oh no, that's so sad. Yeah. So I love Nirvana. I went through like a huge grunge phase when I was like 13 and 14. Yeah. So Foo Fighters are another band which like I was obsessed with when I was about 14 or 15. But then I just sort of expand in the music that I listen to.
So with the Foo Fighters and Nirvana, they're both kind of, rock based. Is that how what originally started your interest?
Yeah, rock music did start my interest, yeah. Then I sort of progressed into weird genres, like Nine Inch Nails are another one of my favourites because they sort of introduced me to this whole other side of music, like they're industrial rock, which sort of, in terms of the production, it's like using things that aren't strictly musical, but then putting them into like poppy sort of arrangements. So yeah, the thing about Nine Inch Nails was they combined just pop elements with non-traditional musical things, and they merged them together and made this amazing industrial rock sound.
And what stage of music do you think we are in now? Because obviously there's kind of been an evolutionary shift, I would say, from the type of music that we hear on the radio. Some people don't really like what's on the radio. Some people think, oh, it's too much pop. It's just trying to sell a song. Like, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of what's playing on the radio right now.
Yeah.
So, but I do have a soft spot for pop.
Yeah.
It's like my guilty pleasure. But nah, I'm not a fan of like contemporary pop.
So why do you think contemporary pop is so popular?
I guess because the songs have sort of been dumbed down to the point where they only take like one or two listens and you've got it stuck in your head.
Yeah.
So there's a certain art to that, I guess, which is what I respect about pop songs. But at the same time, I like listening to music, which I can listen to like 50 times and every time hear something different that I didn't hear the previous time.
Well, for instance, how about Carly Rae's song "Call Me Maybe"?
Oh, yes.
Are you a fan of that?
I love that song.
But that would be contemporary pop, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is. But I love that.
But that's an instance where it's really catchy, and so you still think there's a place for those type of songs?
Yeah.
In the industry,
I do. Yeah, because they appeal to a certain demographic of people, I guess.
Do you think that's important to have like a wide kind of like a wide area of genres appealing to different demographics? For instance, on the last podcast, I had an anarcho-punk artist come in, Jude Joseph, and I'd never even heard of it before. I'm not sure. Did you hear about it? Do you know of anarcho-punk?
I know of punk, but...
Yeah, well,
I guess,
anarcho-punk...
is it related to, like, anarchy?
Yeah, anarchy and just, like, politics.
So they're just, like, punk songs with really...
It's just your voicing your frustration.
About anarchy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is really interesting. So do you think that's important?
As in having a genre that targets a particular audience? Yeah, well, I suppose there's always going to be the audience there, regardless of what genre. Like, pop music, I guess, appeals to the widest audience because there's no, like, screaming or, like, death metal growls or anything.
Yeah.
Like, it's easily accessible. Yeah, so I guess there's always going to be an audience no matter what genre you choose to go with. Like, there's always going to be punk rock. It's just not that mainstream.
And what do you think about auto-tune in the music industry? Are you a fan of that as a sound producer?
I think when it's used as an effect, it's good. Like Kanye West's 808 and Heartbreaks. That's a pretty good album, in my opinion, because he used it... Like, he can't really sing, to be honest, but he sort of used auto-tune to get around that, and he had really melodic lyrics, and obviously they were auto-tuned, but it still sort of helped him. It would have sounded better with auto-tune than hearing Kanye West try to, like, sing without it.
Yeah.
And everything's auto-tuned, though, so now there's this expectation that everything needs to be auto-tuned.
Yeah.
that's what I don't like about it, is that it's really transparent to hear these days as well.
Especially live, when they actually play live. Like, you can hear the difference in the in-studio when they're actually playing live.
Yeah, so auto-tune's an interesting topic because, like, every artist in the studio now, every singer uses it. I remember reading this interview and it was like, does anyone not use it?
Yeah.
And they said, no. This was like a really big studio. I can't remember where. One of them in like Texas or somewhere. And everyone uses it. Because it's not that difficult to actually use.
Well, like, what's involved when you're in the auto-tune process? Have you done it yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. It's like you just record a normal vocal take and then later on you just edit it. And you can literally drag each... Like, you get a visual representation of their pitch, and anything that's off, you can just drag back into place. It's as simple as clicking and dragging the notes so that they're perfectly in tune.
Is it like the way that this podcast is set up, so just like kind of normalizing the volume, or is it a bit more specific in that, in that, like, you're trying to, if like a note's too low, you might put it a bit higher, or something like that.
It's exactly like that. It's like clicking a mouse and on each note they sing. And
And I know that you study sound production at RMIT University. I was wondering, it's a really unique degree, I think, but extremely important because, you know, sound, you know, is extremely important. It's not just music, but television. Because you have all these different mediums, like what do they kind of teach you, and how it transfers to not just music, but television, etc.?
Well, they sort of teach you just the theory of sound itself. The last year's course, I did the certificate for last year, that was mainly music focused. We did touch on film, television and TV and radio a bit as well, but it was mainly music focused. But I feel like music is probably like the pinnacle of sound production.
Yeah.
Because it's completely 100% sound. It's all about sound. So, yeah, definitely the skills you learn through doing music production can basically get you a job in any area of sound, really.
Yeah. And, you know, and even though you brought up music, that's probably like the highlight of sound. But there's also things like, you know, Star Wars, the lightsaber. The lightsaber sound. That's a really distinct, you know, sound, which... I'm not sure how it was created, but, you know, when I think of Star Wars, that sound in particular, that I don't know, I can't.
Yeah, I think how they did it was something to do with, like, the static from a TV screen. They somehow recorded that, and it sounded like a sound.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I think it was discovered by accident, actually. And then they were like, oh, do that again.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. And that's how it all started. Yeah.
And is sound production a process where you kind of do, like there's one type of thing where you can do like, you know, free roam, like you can, you know, mess around with it. And there's also another one where it's more organised, if that makes any sense. Yeah. How would you go about it?
So before I even like started the course, just when I was in like secondary school, I was sort of mucking around by myself just at home.
Yeah.
With a microphone, running into like a cracked copy of Pro Tools, and I was just playing around trying
So what did you use? What program?
Yeah, Pro Tools.
Oh, is that the
that's
program?
That's the name. Yeah, but I had like a pirated copy. I own the legit version now, so be smart. Yeah, don't hate me. So yeah, that was good fun. It sort of taught me. I liked mucking around just with no knowledge of what I was actually doing.
Yeah.
It was pretty fun. But then, once I started the course, I learnt a whole bunch of like the proper technique. But I also found that a lot of the things I did when I was mucking around were actually like the correct things.
Ah, that's interesting.
Which was,
even though you weren't taught them.
Yeah. I just found it by
awesome.
trial and error. I found out what worked and what didn't work. And then when I started the course, like, turns out all the things that worked were the things that they started teaching us.
So how did you become introduced to Pro Tool? Like,
years ago, I was like, how do I record sound? I typed that into like Google, And then they were like, oh, you need a digital audio workstation, blah, 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 blah. And
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like
yeah.
into Google, digital audio workstation, and it was like Pro Tools was like the first thing that came up. And then I did some research and I was like, yeah, it seems like this is what they use in the industry, so let's see if I can pirate it.
Mm-hmm. And what program do you use now for sound production
Still
normally?
Pro Tools. It
Really?
is actually
Ironically,
used
yeah.
in the industry, yeah.
And you also mentioned that there was like a proper technique involved with sound production. What is that?
There's just do's and don'ts, really. Like microphone placement and stuff. If you want to record them, have the microphone like close to them. Don't have the microphone facing the opposite direction.
Yeah.
So mainly all that stuff. Plus, like when mixing, they teach us like general stuff like boost wide, cut narrow, just into that's all the technical mumbo jumbo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like the theory side of it, is it just that like they just teach you how long's your degree program?
It's 2 years, so I'm in the second year now.
So what kind of different areas do they teach you?
So we had like a whole subject just on microphones.
Yeah.
A whole subject on microphones because there's just so many different types and they all have different properties like in the polar patterns and stuff, sensitivity. So we had a whole topic on that. And then
What are polar patterns?
polar patterns are like, well, these microphones here, these are probably omnidirectional since we're in a radio studio. So that means I pick up sound equally no matter what direction
Ah, yeah.
you speak from. But then there's like cardioid microphones, which means if you turn the mic around, it's not going to pick it up as much. But if you turn it facing you, it'll pick it up better. And then there's like figure 8 microphones, which is where it'll pick up noise from the front and the back, but nothing from the sides. So they all have great use in like a live music environment, trying to like reject sounds coming from other directions and stuff. And they're also used obviously in the studio to get a clean sound. Yeah.
And I also see on some shows like, I don't know, like Jimmy Kimmel or just any show really, like they have just like these small microphones that they put on their on their like t-shirt. How does that work? Because it generates so much volume, even though it's really small.
Yeah, they're called lapel mics or lavs. They're electret condenser mics. The reason they can pick up so much is because they're powered by like batteries or phantom power. So that just makes them a lot more sensitive to picking up sounds.
Mm-hmm. And another thing I noticed that with musicians now, I'm not sure if this was common back in the day, but now you hear them, especially at really big concerts, they wear earpieces.
Ah, yeah.
Yep. So I assume the purpose behind that is so you don't get any ear damage. Do you think that's important for every artist to have a kind of like an earpiece in?
Yeah, well, when I go to gigs now, since I'm like doing sound stuff and like live mixing, I sort of need to protect my ears because if I lose my hearing, like there goes any chance of getting a job in the industry. So when I go out to gigs, even if I'm just in the audience, I'll still bring like a pair of earplugs, depending on how loud it is.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, being a musician, I'd suggest like since you're right next to your amplifier or something, it would be really loud. So
are you aware of the specific decibel range that is said to be like too loud, and that's when you should wear like an earpiece? Like, how do you know when to wear an earpiece? Do you just
basically, if it starts hurting, then yeah.
Have you ever had that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At Rod Laver Arena one time, it was like the pre-show music, like just the supporting act, but it was so loud, it was ridiculous. I was like not even at the front, like I was the front row of the seats at the back, and it was so loud. Like I was there for like 5 minutes, then my ears just started hurting. I had to go out and just get some earplugs.
What band was that?
I think it was Nickelback.
Oh,
So
yeah, they're popular. Yeah,
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
I love Nickelback. But yeah, no, they can be really loud, especially the vocalist. He's got a very deep voice.
Yeah.
And so when or was it more the actual instruments, or was it a bit of both?
just the whole sound in general was really loud.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised because it was Nickelback.
Nickelback, yeah. Do you like that band?
My sister dragged me along to Nickelback, but when I was there, like, I went there with, like, really low expectations. I was like, oh, God, it's Nickelback. But then I went there, and there were, like, so many songs which I knew.
Yeah.
Like, back from, like, 2003 and stuff. And I was like, yeah, these songs are pretty good, but then they're all the same, though.
Mm-hmm. And have you ever done any, apart from, like, your own original songs, have you ever done, like, any, I'm not sure, I forgot what it's called, but, like, mashups where, I'm not sure if that's what you call it, but, like, where, you get, say, like, a piece of music, say something from, I don't know, like Coldplay, and then you turn it into your own sound?
Not really.
Have you ever done that?
I haven't really done much.
Remix, yeah.
I haven't really done much, like, remixing or any sort of DJ mashup styles, but I did, as part of our course, we did have a subject called genre, which was where we got given a piece of music and we had to remix it to fit a different genre. So that was probably the only instance where I remixed a song.
That's really interesting. What was involved in that process specifically to change it to a different genre?
Yeah. So the song we were given was like sort of ambient, industrial. Like it was a band How to Destroy Angels, which is Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails. It's his side project, which he does with like his wife and his friend. And so it was really sort of down-tempo, like gritty pop, I guess. And we got given the stems, which are like the bass guitar track or bass synth it was, and like the drums, they're all separate, and the vocals are all separate audio files, which then gives us the opportunity to chop it up and change the tempo and just completely remix it, I guess.
Is that hard to learn? Or was that
most of the hardest part was researching the genre itself. Like had to pull it out of a hat, and I got Manchester, which is this genre, like a very short-lived genre. It sort of came pre Britpop, but sort of post. It's weird. It's like the time between like Blur and Oasis and the Smiths, like that weird period in between those two bands where things were getting, plus like it was the early 90s, so it was a period of like 1990 to like 1993, so it was a very short-lived like genre, but it was like the stepping stone to Britpop, and it's a really dancey genre. It's an interesting genre. It's like guitar-y music but really dancey. So it's like jangle pop mixed with like dance music.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. And you mentioned the band Oasis. I'm a huge fan of Oasis. One thing that strikes me about them is a lot of the criticism they get is sometimes towards the lead singer. So I think his name's Noel. Or was it Liam? Liam Gallagher, sorry. And he was criticised sometimes for his vocals, but I really liked it because it was really different. It was really casual, but it still sounded good, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you still think there's room for music which is just natural as opposed to just all like, perfectly sound produced?
Yeah, absolutely. I love like the natural approach.
Yeah. There's still room for that.
Definitely, yeah. And artists, some still do that today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what artists specifically are we talking about?
One of the things that comes to mind would be Foo Fighters in 2011. Their album Wasting Light. They decided not to use computers at all. They decided to record like straight to tape.
Oh, wow.
Which is really old school. Like,
yeah,
no one really did that since the 90s.
Did that still sound similar to their other music?
Yeah, like you wouldn't really notice that much of a difference at all in terms of how it sounds, which I guess is a really positive thing for both the sound engineers, the producers, and the band themselves, is that they did it without the benefits of like digital technology.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned to me before the podcast that you play not just guitar, but you also play a diversity of instruments. How did you learn to play so many instruments like the synthesizers?
Well, self-taught, really.
Self-taught, yeah.
Yeah.
But like, how is it? So just basically when you're just...
I just sort of mucked around. I started with piano, I think, when I was about 12 years old. So what happened was we had to have this upright piano just in our house, and no one was using it. No one in my house plays piano. I was like, why is there a piano in our house if no one uses it? So one afternoon I just sort of looked up how to play piano, and it started at a really basic level with like reading sheet music and playing like hot cross buns.
Yeah.
That's like how it all started. And then I moved on from hot cross buns to like Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Yeah.
And then Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And then I don't really read sheet music anymore, but that's how I started. And then from there I moved on to like guitar, because I'd always wanted to play guitar, because people who play guitar were cool. I wanted to be cool.
Absolutely.
So then I remember seeing in the Melbourne show, there was in the Melbourne show catalogue, one of the show bags they had was like, came with like a free guitar. And I was like, that's it. That's where I'm going to start. So I went to the Melbourne show and got the guitar. It ended up being more like a ukulele. It was about like 35 centimeters big, but it still had 6 strings. But it was completely out of tune. But nevertheless, I still sort of learnt which notes were which, and
that's really good. Yeah.
And regardless of the fact it was out of tune, like, I still got like how to play chords down and stuff. And then after a couple of months I realized I can't just play on this tiny little out of tune awful little guitar. So I went to this guitar shop in like Frankston or somewhere, and I bought myself a proper like classical nylon string guitar for like $99.
And there's so many great solo guitarists out there who can not only just play the guitar, but they can actually sing really well vocally. Some artists would spring to mind. John Butler Trio, that's an amazing band. Ed Sheeran as well. He literally just gets out on stage and just starts playing the guitar. And his vocals are amazing as well.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, are you a fan of him? Yeah.
Yeah, he's good.
And what he also does some things where he has like a loop, a sound loop.
Yeah.
So he kind of...
Looping pedals.
Yeah, looping pedals. So he kind of uses that as like a second person in the band, which I think is really clever. Have you ever done that before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot. I've spent so many hours just looping stuff. That's like how I spent year 12.
Yeah.
It was just me at home, just plugging different instruments into this looping pedal, and then just starting with like nothing, and then just looping a sound or like a chord progression, and then just building and building and building, adding like beats, adding like loads of synths, and just stacking sounds on top of each other.
How does it work? So I don't think it's as simple as just pressing the pedal and then stopping it. Because when I've only seen Ed Sheeran use it, I'm sure there's many artists who do. But with Ed Sheeran, I noticed that, he gets up the beat for whatever song. And then he starts, and even when it's looping, he's still adding things to it. How does that work?
Well, once you hit the pedal, it starts recording, basically. And then by the time you hit the pedal again, that's the loop that's made, and it will just play, get to the end, go back to the start, play like tape. Like having a tape loop. So it just starts, finishes, and then over the top of that you can add extra things. If you hit the pedal again, it starts recording again over the top. So you can just stack sounds on top of sounds, and then just build huge walls of sound.
When did that become popular? Because I only really noticed it with Ed Sheeran, but I assume that it's been around for a while.
Yeah, back in like the 70s, I know Robert Fripp, who's a guitarist and sort of avant-garde musician, he used to use tape machines, and he'd run the tape from one tape machine to another tape machine, and then that tape would then go back into the first tape machine, so it would just keep going around, and then he'd record on one so that it would create a loop. That's how he did it well before computers, was actually using tape recorders.
Yeah. How much does it cost to purchase one of those?
Probably thousands. Like for a good quality one, it's thousands of dollars. Yeah.
Wow, that's I didn't know they cost that much.
Oh, you can get like really cheap ones for like $100, or like I'd throw them out basically because they're so bad. But anyway, but then once computers came around, in the 90s probably was when digital loop-in pedals arrived. And yeah, that just works by like saving it as a digital file and then just playing it over and over.
And have you heard of John Butler Trio's song Ocean?
Oh yeah.
I just find that
one
absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
The way he, I don't believe there's any vocals to it, and
it's all just guitar.
And not
it's amazing.
Yeah, and not just that. What he does really well is he uses his foot to stamp the beat as well. And that's really good. It's got millions of viewers.
Yeah.
One of his live performances. I just find that an amazing song. Just the way he builds it up. Have you ever done any kind of unconventional type of music when it comes to the guitar?
Not that unconventional. Mainly just distorting sounds until like it's just noise.
How do you do that? How do you sort the...
Just overdrive pedal, going into like a distortion pedal, going into like another overdrive pedal, and then I'll just like chuck all this noise into like a phase pedal and make it sound all like phasey sound, and then chuck that into like a delay pedal and give it like all this echo.
Yeah.
And then you get like shoegazing music out of that. You just get fuzzy, noisy, but interesting music. I like that weird sort of music.
And what do you think of Skrillex?
Well, he actually like started off in like a post-hardcore band, and he was like the lead singer, but he had to stop that because screaming was just damaging his voice so much that he couldn't pursue it. And I find it interesting that he just like turned his career around and just went like, no more post-hardcore music. I'm just going to go like dubstep. But dubstep I find is a pretty interesting genre, production-wise. Because it is pretty unconventional. It is just mashing up non-musical sounds and just making like huge bass wah wah wahs, which is pretty interesting. Like from a production point of view, I'm a bit of a fan, really. Yeah,
dubstep. Yeah, I'm not sure how when that became popular, but I didn't really remember it as a kid growing up.
Nah, it's pretty new. It was like 2009-ish. It would have sort of started.
Yeah, and I don't know, Skrillex just took my attention just in terms of he was unconventional, just the way he experiments with, different types of music. Is it hard to differentiate the original music that you write to another artist?
Yeah.
For instance, Coldplay, their song Viva La Vida was, in part, it did copy some from another, like some elements from another song.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you heard about that. But have you ever, with your original songs, like got something from a particular artist and just modified it slightly?
Well, I think like everything really that any musician writes is influenced by something, be it like a music, a film, like a poem. Like influence is inevitably part of the music that someone creates, but Like, if I'm writing a song and it sounds exactly the same as Viva La Vida, I'd be like, hang on.
Yeah.
This sounds familiar. Yeah, so I'd know. I'd probably just scrap it.
Mm-hmm. And another band which springs to mind that's really unconventional is, have you ever heard of Sugar Ross?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
They're an amazing band.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if they do this with all their songs, but with their vocals, they don't actually... with their words, they don't actually mean anything.
Is it not Scandinavian?
Hoppy Poller or something? Have you heard of that?
I thought it... Doesn't he? So...
we might be thinking of a different band.
No. I know I thought they're from, like, Iceland.
Yeah, Iceland, yeah. But for a particular song they have called Hoppy Poller, they literally just sing... It's a really good sounding song, but what they're saying doesn't make any sense. So, like, the words they're saying. So, like, they're not stringy sentences. It's just more for the sound. Yeah. That's all. I find that a really interesting type of music. Have you ever, like, delved into that side of music as well?
Yeah, like, I've done, like, instrumental pieces.
But, like, where the vocals don't actually make sense?
I've never done that. What I thought of doing one time was just making a whole bunch of songs in, like, my own language. Just creating my own words and then just making lyrics which do make sense, but they're in, like, a language that only I know. And then just leaving it to, like, the listener to try and figure out, like, what I'm actually saying. I'd have, like, codes and hints in, like, the lyric booklet about, like, what each sound means.
Well, I guess, that's part of the appeal with music as you're listening to it, is that, everyone takes away a different experience from it. Because sometimes I can listen to music and even though I don't know what it means, I can still just like the tune of it. I might even think it's like a happy song even though it's a sad song. For instance, Oasis's song Wonderwall, I believe, I don't know if you know the story behind that, I believe that was created by I just thought of it as, like, a really good song, but when I looked deeper into the lyrics, it was about apparently a boy having his first crush or something and not being able to get over it.
Oh,
did you know that?
So what is a Wonderwall?
What is a Wonderwall?
I never really
I think the Wonderwall is referring to the girl the boy is thinking of. I could be wrong. So don't quote me. No, but it was something to do with, like, love and not being able to express it. But I never thought of that as I listened to the music.
What about, like, the line, I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now? Yeah. That sort of...
Yeah. Guess... So it's like you got it all in your head, and that's behind the story. But like, even like something like that, I didn't think specifically of, like, a boy, you can refer it to anything really. And is that something you take into consideration when writing your own music, that everyone takes away a different perspective, even though that's the way you might not have intended it to be perceived?
Yeah, well, when I'm writing songs, I don't really care too much about the lyrics, to be completely honest. That's usually, like, the last thing I do. Yeah. But, yeah, I guess everyone can interpret songs differently. Yeah, like, sometimes the message in a song can sort of get mistranslated.
And it depends also what, genre you play, because with the anarcho-punk artist that I had last time, he said, the lyrics are extremely important to the song. But, so what genre do you normally stick with?
Probably, like, indie pop.
Indie pop, yeah.
That's pretty broad, or, like, indie rock. It's a broad term, but I've done stuff with, like, everything, but yeah, I guess my music sort of sticks to the rock category for the most part. But I do have a soft spot for, like, new wave and, like, 80s dance music. I love it. Yeah. And
you've also been involved, you were telling me, with so the Hoist, The Leak as well, which is
that was RMITV's political satire show.
Are you enjoying that?
Yeah, I was the audio director for the first season of that, which was great fun because I finally got to apply like my skills that I've learnt through my course into like a TV environment, which was pretty good because they used a lot of interesting things. Like at one time we had to do a Skype interview live to air, which was a challenge to set up, but we got there eventually. And then we had like cross in from studio A to studio B. So we had to like go into the patch room and repatch all these cables so that we could get the inputs into the mixing desk, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so there's different ways to set it up.
It was rewarding because like it was a challenge, but doing live to air things, like setting up for that, is so stressful because there's the deadline and you can't go over that deadline because
I can imagine. Yeah.
the show's got to go to air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not like pre-recorded or anything.
Nah.
It's just you have to go live to So, and I've actually got a question for you. A friend and I are trying to set up a Skype call, but something where I can record from, say, like my home or something. So like video call him on Skype and he video calls me, or he's on the receiving end. And I also want to record that whole thing, like our discussion, upload it onto SYN Media. Would you know how to?
You just need like a vision capture program for your computer.
Yeah, I was having a look at that. It was like, do you know any specific programs?
Not really. No.
How did you get the Skype interview set up? Was that? But
that was they have so many cables like in the TV studio. They just somehow connected it. Like I think it was like the VGA output went into some crazy little box which converted it to like digital.
Oh wow!
It was pretty complicated.
And would that go just like on the wide screen as well? Just completely, that would just fill up the whole space of the TV. Oh, that's awesome.
And then they could like cut between like shots from inside the studio where all the hosts were talking at the desk to the Skype interview, which was really cool. So like the vision, they could swap between the Skype interviewee and all the hosts at the desk, which was really cool.
And you told me you were involved with Channel 31, or was that?
Yep, that's part of SYN as well. But yeah, it was sort of SYN and Channel 31, 1700.
And what's involved there?
So that's SYN's like only TV program that they run. It's a live to air music show, which runs every weekday from 5 o'clock in the afternoon, hence 1700. For that, I was one of the presenters every Monday. I was a co-presenter. It was good fun because it was different to doing radio stuff because you've got to like make sure that you're looking good on TV.
Yeah.
Like here on like a radio show, you can sort of just sit back and just chill.
It's more casual, yeah.
Yeah, but you can't do that when you're live on TV. But I enjoyed that a lot because I thought it was a really interesting way to sort of get some experience doing something I wouldn't considered really doing. Yeah. Because I only did it because I really love music and I sort of wanted to interview bands and stuff. But then I ended up really enjoying it. Yeah.
And in the future, where do you plan to take your ambitions? Are you thinking about becoming an artist yourself, or do you want to be someone who advocates for artists, whether it's through like television shows or?
That's a tough question because I can't really predict my future, but I'd like to make a living just like making music, like doing film scores or something. I would really enjoy. But at the same time, I'd like to be just like a live engineer at like the corner hotel or somewhere, just mixing bands every night. And at the same time, I'd like to just be like a radio host.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely something along like the music, relating to the music industry in some way. But, yeah, anything to do with sound would be fine too. Like doing sound for films, like Holding the Boom. I could do that. That would be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what really interested me was the new Mad Max movie, Fury Road. They actually had, for the car chase scenes, they had out of shot, they had like a van chasing the cars, and inside the van was a mixing console and like an engineer who was mixing all the audio from the cars live, like in real time, just to get like a basic mix. Plus they had microphones in crazy positions. Like they had a microphone right next to the exhaust on one of the cars. And it ended up melting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I reckon doing audio for films would be a whole bunch of fun too, as well.
Yeah, because there's such a, like, there's so much, equipment which is involved with that. It's not just like a camera. You've got things to pick up sound, which is vital. Sound is...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it sounds like a really exciting industry. Are there new developments coming along? Or is it pretty stale at the moment?
Well, I guess software is really, really amazing right now. Like, no one really needs huge mixing consoles anymore because it's all on your computer now. Plus, no one needs, like, reverb chambers, like actual physical spaces to get reverb happening. Or you don't need like a rack unit anymore because you can do it all through plugins, and you can get really convincing, like real sounding reverb and like delays, which are really cool. So software is like advancing in phenomenal rates, but in terms of the transition from like analog to digital, it's sort of stale now because it's sort of already happened.
Yeah.
Like about 10 years ago, it was like all just analog stuff, or like 15 years ago. But now it's all digital. It's turned over really fast.
Yeah, which makes me, and we're kind of lucky, aren't we, to experience that, transition, I think. I think we can take it for granted sometimes.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, like, like even 50 years from now, like what's going to happen? Yeah. Like apart from the digital, because something will happen.
We'll have hoverboards.
Like hoverboards and,
and like holograms.
Yeah. Yep. So many, and especially with like sound production, like who knows, what's going to happen there.
Yeah.
And another movie which really, because, with movies, the music is a vital part of, setting up the theme of a particular scene or anything like that. One that comes to mind, which I think is underrated, is in Harry Potter, where they have like the Christmas theme and then they have like really good songs. But you always see when they, or with any movie, that normally there's like a huge music team. Sometimes there'd be like, like a violin guy, and there'd be someone who's I'm not sure what it's called, but someone who sets the notes and says, like
conductor.
directs the director of
a conductor. Yeah.
Conductor, yeah. Is that like what do they do when they're like? Are they just saying like higher pitch, lower pitch?
No, they're just mainly doing time signatures. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, and then with their other hand, they'll sort of adjust the mood, I guess.
Yeah.
Like they'll raise their hand if they want energy, and then they'll sort of drop it back down, and then they'll also introduce the new parts. Like so they'll point to the string section, like when it's time for them to enter, and then I'll tell them to stop, and then when they'll turn the page on their sheet music, and then when it's time for like that flute section to come in, he'll just be like, "Yep, you flutes come in now."
Yeah, so the conductor's not just there for the sake of it. Like they actually have a pretty essential role, in setting the tone. Because I remember when I did school choir, even there's something as simple as that. It's not just higher, it's the energy as well that you bring. There's so many different elements of sound and how to produce it as well, or how to construct it rather. And I know you're pretty keen to play a song for our listeners or viewers. This is a really great song. Sorry to put pressure on you. So the song that Ed will play is called "Hiding Away." And what's the context of that?
Well, I just wrote this song in like one sitting. I find that's the only way I can really write like a full song.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
not
to sit
uncommon at all.
down
Yeah.
and just do it in like a couple of hours. So it's about like this person that runs away from home, from a life, and then the verses and stuff sort of switch perspectives on where she is and what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
so I've got a whole bunch of songs which are just like half written. So it was nice to sort of finally just finish one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we'll get mic 2 on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty new song as well, so
That's all right.
I've
yeah,
got
we
the
got the
lyrics with me.
That's all good. And I'll place that on. So yeah, is that everything?
Yeah,
All
I
good.
think I'm all good.
I'll just get the camera positioning,
Yep, no worries.
and you can play whenever you want.
Okay. Lucy's in a spin, she's got her head in the clouds. She wants to see the world, but she's not allowed. She's tied to her man, her job, and her degree. There are so many places she would rather be. I know you are always dreaming, thinking, breathing, and believing. I know you are always dreaming, thinking, breathing, high achieving. She's hiding away from me, hiding away from me. She's hiding away from me, hiding away from me. Last night she ran away, she said you don't understand that there's a world out there I wanna see firsthand. She's stuck out in the morning, barely making a sound. The only trace left was the letter I found. It read, I've taken the car and some money too, and when I come back we can start anew. Where are you? She's hiding away from me, hiding away from me. She's hiding away from me, hiding away from me. Lucy's in a spin, she's got her head in the clouds. She wants to see the world, but she's not allowed. When I entered her room, I found her clothes were all packed. And now I've taken the hint, she's never coming back. I knew you were always dreaming, lying, thieving, and misleading. I knew you were always dreaming, lying, cheating, and deceiving. She's hiding away from me, hiding away from me. She's hiding away from me, hiding away from me, hiding away from me, hiding away from me.